3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. As always, I am 1/3 your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. I am joined in College Station and Stillwater, Oklahoma, respectively, by Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder. We have had an excellent week of football to recap and an even better week to preview this coming week. Walker Lott, Ryan Schroeder, give me your quick thoughts, starting with Walker, on last week's action and continuing looking forward to next week. What do you think about the general state of private school football as we're in right now?
We had a great week last week, a lot of good games, and this week's slate is insane. Even with all the buys, the top 5 games of the week are really, really good, and I'm excited for this week.
Absolutely. Ryan Schroeder, an absolute workhorse this weekend, a week that we weren't supposed to have we're supposed to have a little bit of a dip in content. Ryan goes to not one, but 2 games in Dallas this weekend. Ryan, shout out for that. And just what do you think about the current state of private school football as we have it?
Yeah, it's been great. Got to see a really good game on Friday night, and we'll recap that in a little bit. But great couple of weeks that we've had recently, and I'm excited to get into district soon.
Absolutely. We are all looking forward to district play. With district play will come our inaugural rankings next week. We are very excited about putting those out. But yeah, I mean, things are really starting to heat up, and it's a very interesting time in private school football right now. But before we move on to recapping players of the week and our games, we're going to start, as always, by recapping last week's pick record, which, if I can read that correctly, I think I'm still on top. I am. I went 14-4 last week. I'm 55-30 overall. Let's see. It seems like Ryan comes in second with 54-30, going 14-3 last week. Walker goes 13-4 last week. He is 52-32. You know, Ryan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so I want to bring up something because I made this. I put this in after Friday night, and I need to talk to Walker, and we need to talk about this because so Wes got a double loss for the game that he decided to go back on. However, should he lose a win for doing that as well, because it wouldn't add up and he would be a game ahead. There'd be just a game that he would have in front of us.
I kind of like that.
No, that's no double penalty.
So, but you'd be a game off from us the whole season, and
yeah,
and
but the percentages was, I don't know, we didn't agree to 2 losses.
It's not 2 losses. It's just you lose 1 win and you get a loss on there. I don't know. Something to think about. Let us know in the comments what you think for the pick record as well. Because right now I'm 54-30 and Wes is 55-30. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, even though we picked the same amount of games.
Yeah. Wait. How? Oh, right. Yeah. We'll go back and look at this, but I can maybe relent to that. I think I still have some negotiating leverage here.
Why don't we all just lose 2 games and then we're all on the same record? That's what I'm feeling.
No, I'll just keep this right here.
Ryan, I really do appreciate you showing me what I will be earning at the end of the season. It's nice to have a preview. It's nice for you to display my winnings already.
No,
but
I like to keep it here on my desk just to know what I'm going to be, where I'm going to be keeping it next year as well.
But yeah, thank the Lord, dude, that we actually have some data on teams now, because we've gone from going 8 and 9 weeks, and now we're back to 14-3s, which is much better than it has been in the past. But moving forward, that will recap the pick records. I fully anticipate on winning, regardless of the unfair penalties imposed against me. But moving into our players of the week, starting on offense, the Texas Private School Podcast Player of the Week, Antoine Polk, running back for Southwest Christian, 34 carries, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, and for some bonus passing stats, 2 for 2, 43 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a 35-34 win in overtime against Hallettsville. Take a deep breath. Oh, okay. That was a lot to say. Walker, it's your alma mater. I'll let you speak on it. Just 34 carries, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns in a vacuum is a crazy game. You had 2 passing touchdowns on top of that and an overtime win. I mean, is Antoine Polk human or robot? Please elaborate.
A mixture of both. That's how I would say it. No, man, we've talked about Antoine since last year of just how dominant of a player he is. When he comes up, having 34 carries, Wes, is a monster thing to basically, hey, put the team on your back, go to work and go play. And just the 3 touchdowns and a big win over Hallettsville, who went to the state championship like 2-3 years ago. Hallettsville. I mean, that's one impressive. And him passing the ball too. I mean, for 43 yards. So, I mean, that means it's not like on the end zone, like just like Tim Tebow just, jump pass. That means it's probably from like the 20-yard line, something like that.
Gosh.
So that's just very, very impressive by Antoine, man. 6 foot, 215-pound running back he's a monster. He's been doing this all season. I know against I think like Trinity Valley or something like that, he had 285 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's just having a monster senior year. Colleges need to look out for this guy because at his size, he runs strong, he runs forward, and he runs pretty fast. He's just looked better this year. He puts on a little bit more muscle. He's faster. He's quicker. He's going to be the real deal this year.
Yeah, he definitely sounds like it. Ryan, your thoughts on Antoine Polk's crazy stat line in the win against Hallettsville?
Yeah, that's an amazing win for SCS, but that game is nowhere near that score without Antoine Polk. Antoine Polk really made an impact for this SCS team, and it basically was the offense for them on that night. So, I mean, that's nuts. 34 carries alone, and then being able to put up 218 yards off of those 34 carries.
Oh my God, I'm watching. Sorry, I'm watching it right now. The highlights. He does the fake kind of like outside stop and then throw it from like the 25. Like, how does he do that as a running back, bro? I don't get that. Like, that's so impressive.
So like he kind of like runs out to the side, like he's like scrambling out like for a run.
It's
and then
they had 3 blockers in front of him, and he's like sprinting out to do basically kind of a wildcat like run to the right type of thing, and then he just stops and throws it up there.
That's not bad. That's
impressive.
Incredible. No, you're looking at that stat. He accounted for every single touchdown that Southwest Christian scored in that game. But yeah, I mean, you just have to shout out Antoine Polk. We've known he's been a freak since last year, and he's just continuing to prove that as this season goes on. So congratulations to Antoine Polk, the Texas Private School Podcast Offensive Player of the Week. Transitioning into the Texas Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Week, Luke Anderson. He had 18 tackles, 8 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass breakup just for the icing, and a 27-20 win against Grapevine Faith last Friday. Ryan, I'm going to hand this one off to you first. You were at this game. You saw firsthand how good Luke Anderson was. What were your thoughts watching this live, this incredible performance from Luke Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, whether it was offense or defensive side of the ball, Luke Anderson is elite. People put him at the defensive side as his primary, which you could see by 18 tackles, and everything else he did for Fourth Christian, that he is a defensive player. But I mean, he had two offensive rushing touchdowns on top of this. This is like Luke Anderson is probably the best one. I'm gonna say he is the best 2-way guy in private school right now, in my opinion. And I think this is nothing short of it. So we highlighted him for his offensive stuff that he did this past weekend over on the podcast during the live coverage of it. But Luke Anderson was a menace on defense, looked amazing, and definitely was the reason why Grapevine Faith was not scoring on that final drive. And overall, that Fourth Christian defense that Luke Anderson led just looked really, really, really solid when they were trying to keep Grapevine Faith away, because Grapevine Faith never had the lead in this game, even though they were 14 points away. But we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, I mean, an absolutely crazy performance. Walker, your thoughts on Luke Anderson having a crazy stat line in the win against Grapevine Faith?
I mean, I think we talked about it. I forgot what episode, Wes, a while back, of just how impressive and college ready this linebacker is. His sideline to sideline speed is very, very impressive. His quick twitch, reading the defense is just, it's what you want in a linebacker. And the sack as a linebacker is also very impressive. And also just PBU, tackle for loss, sack, right? That's showing his versatility. Like, he can play everywhere on the field. If he needs to go into coverage, he can do it. If he needs to rush a passer, he can do that. If he needs to make just the tackles and stay in the box, he can do it. That's what you want in a linebacker, versatile, just athlete. And you can see why colleges are after him already. Congratulations, Luke Anderson, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations to Luke Anderson for being the Texas Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Week. And yeah, shout out to y'all for holding down the space while I was gone. So make sure y'all join those every Friday. Literally every single Friday after the games, we go live around 10 or 10:30 p.m. depending on what time our game's in. And we just we're starting to get like a bunch of people in there. Like we average like 30, 35 viewers, and we all just kind of like chill in there, and y'all will submit us questions and we'll give our knee-jerk reactions to what's going on. And it's honestly one of the most fun things that we do right now, in my opinion. So make sure you join those every Friday, roughly 10:30 after the game's in. But Walker, you had a 6-man guy that really caught your eye this week that we're going to give an honorable mention for Player of the Week. Let us know a little bit about Dylan Harper and his stat line.
Yeah, Dylan Harper, 5 receptions, 85 yards, and 4 touchdowns in a win. A 70-14 win. Nothing better than 6-man football over Katy Faith West. He's from, I believe, Covenant Christian School down in like Willows, Conroe area. 3-sport athlete, just a monster player. I'm just, I believe they're now like maybe 4-0, maybe 5-0 now, and they're just a really good team down there in Conroe. Just really, really impressed with the kid. So congrats to him, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Wait,
Absolutely.
wait, I also wanted to say he also had 2 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6. So both sides of the ball, just a player.
They call it the fastest game on grass for a reason. Shout out. You just got to give a big shout out to Dylan Harper. Congratulations. Fantastic stat line. Moving on, we are going to take a look at the Texas Private School Media Scoreboard as we put up every week. Ryan somehow got this out this Friday after covering a game, which I still don't know how it's fully possible. But I mean, Ryan, you obviously do a great job with this every week. How did you get this out, by the way, Friday night?
Yeah, so what's called we drove down from Stillwater on Friday. I had my girlfriend start doing it while I was in the car on the way down, and she was putting the teams in there. And then what's called I just got home from Faith. Thank God Faith is not very far away from my house. And yeah, we drove while I was just like every week. We're on the Twitter space after the game and we're entering in those scores. So hope you all appreciate that. It's something that we want to make sure that everybody has a centralized place, because sometimes Max Preps doesn't have all the scores, and sometimes all these other places don't have the scores. So trying to make sure that we have all the scores in one place on those Friday nights.
Yeah, for sure. So just going through this and picking out some stuff that's interesting. DC beats Nolan 28-19. We'll talk about that in the rest of these 5 games in the left-hand column and our recaps. Grace Community beats Spring Hill 40-21. You know what? I'm going to go into a very short story here why this game meant a lot to me. In my senior year in 7-on-7, going in, or before my senior year in 7-on-7, we were in a state qualifier tournament. We were very good at 7-on-7. We got to the qualifying game to go to state against Spring Hill. Long story short, we were up by 5 points. There were 20 seconds left in the game. We just had to snap the ball, basically throw it into the end zone. The game would have been over. We threw a pick 6, and Spring Hill returned it and beat us and ruined the chance we had to go into the state 7-on-7 tournament. And we were talking a lot of mess back and forth that whole game. That just being said, I don't like Spring Hill at all. And I am very, very happy Grace came out and got the win 40-21 and avenged my defeat to them 4 years ago that I hang on to so bitterly. Walker.
Do you know shout out to LSCSN. Did you see this stat, Wes?
No,
The last time Tyler Grace started 5-0 was 2010. They finished 9-2 that year, okay, and didn't lose until week 8. And they lost 42-35 to Parish Episcopal, and lost in the first round to Fort Worth Christian 44-38. Their 2 losses on the year was only to 13 points.
Yeah, that 2010 team was really good by what I remember. I'm not going to make any bold assumptions. D2 District 2 is going to be very interesting, as me and Ryan have both said. Grace is giving me hope, which scares me because that means I have the ability to be let down. But also, I'm so daggum proud of that team for starting 5-0. It means a lot, especially after the troubles they've had in the last couple of years. But enough about Grace Community. I ran about them too much every week. Looking at this, Argyle Liberty beats the dog out of Bishop Lynch 43-14. Preston Woods smacks Cornerstone 44-7. Bishop Dunn also smacks St. Pius. Walker, that would be your squad, 40-16. St. John's continues its dominant path 49-7. Cistercian over Grace Prep 52-42. I don't need to read every single one of these, but John Cooper smacks Oak Ridge. Trinity Valley destroys Houston Christian. Pantego Christian beats Legacy by 4. Southwest Christian beats Hollidsville. Yeah, so that's about the main things I'm seeing out here. Oh, and Austin Regents destroys San Antonio Christian 55-0. So those are the main scores that stand out to me. Ryan, this is your scoreboard. I'll turn to you first. What did you think about? Is there anything else that stands out to you? Anything you want to add to from last week's scoreboard?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to put as many games that fit on here that I thought, obviously we try to put the games that we pick first, but the one that obviously that I was upset about was like we go to Pantego, Legacy does, and we go to Pantego, lose by 4, that really stings. But yeah, other than that, Lake Country, it's a great win over Houston Northland, because Houston Northland has Stone Walker, and he's a really, really good athlete from what we've heard this year. And the rest of these games, we had a really good pick record this week, so I think things went probably where we thought they were going to go. Obviously that Coram Deo game was a game we're going to cover later and stuff, but lots of different things on the slate this week that we mostly got right. I think there really wasn't a lot. Obviously, that Southwest game is crazy over Hallettsville, but I think it was a pretty standard week. And then obviously there were some Saturday games that we don't have on here, but the Saturday games, I think, if I'm not mistaken, TCA Addison was a Saturday game, and then the ESD game that I went to and Midland Christian was also a Saturday game. So I can pull up those scores while you are talking if you want.
Yeah, for sure. Walker, your brief thoughts on the TXPS Media scoreboard.
Dallas Covenant 5-0, baby. They keep going in TAPS D3. It's a very, very impressive team. They still have to play, Brook Hill, Dallas Christian, but some of those coaches over there just, reached out to us and put us in this Twitter space, told us, hey, keep looking at us. I'm looking at this team, and hey, we got to give them credit where credit's due. And they're 5-0 going into district. I'm excited to see how this turns out. I got to give up to my boys over big 3A power in Hallettsville. 35-34 win in overtime. Like we talked about, Antoine Polk did really good. Maddox McCarroll on the defensive side did really good. I think Christian Wells had 2 of those touchdowns that Antoine threw. I mean, it's just a balanced team, man. You going to overtime and winning is always just so impressive. So congrats to those guys, Eagle Pride. And yeah, man, just congrats to those boys.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to Southwest Christian and everyone else that won last week. But with the conclusion of that, we are now actually going to recap the 5 games we previewed last week, starting with Dallas Christian versus Nolan Catholic. DC beat Nolan 28-19. And the trio of Carney, Nettles, and Hernandez showed why DC is still top dogs. Carney throws for almost 300 yards and a touchdown and rushes for another 60. Nettles goes for 151 yards receiving and a touchdown, while workhorse Hernandez ran for 168 yards and a touchdown of his own. Defensively, senior Austin Ellis had 18 total tackles. Junior Chris Scott had 16 and a tackle for loss. Junior Devontae High had 15 tackles. Junior Porter Nix had 10 and 2 tackles for loss. Just an absolutely ferocious effort by the Charger defense. Senior Franklin Michael also had an interception on the contest. At the end of the day, you cannot fault the Vikings for this loss. Dallas Christian, regardless of division, is one of the best programs in the state and still is a rolling ball of chainsaws. Walker, Nolan versus Dallas Christian. DC gets the win here. I don't think this really has any bad implications for Nolan. DC is still just that good, even though they're a D3 team. Your thoughts on the outcome of this game?
That's a big, hey, you brought it back, huh? You brought back the rolling ball of chainsaws. And that's a big compliment if y'all didn't know. We talk highly of DC, but that's a big compliment bringing it back to that squad. Yeah, I mean, Dallas Christian is Dallas Christian, and we've known it for a while. And whenever we do our rankings for private schools, I mean, they're going to have to be right up there for some of the best out there. So you have to give credit where credit's due. I don't know, man. It's very intriguing. Locking down Cole Matsua and Antonio Hall and all those guys over there, it's a very impressive win for that defense. And how having you name just all those guys who just had multiple and double-digit tackles is just impressive. I mean, that's that defense locked down that Nolan team, which if you know DC, they're known for their defense. And then on the other side, being able to have Carney throwing for 300 I mean, that's nuts. That team just had a field day that week against Nolan Catholic, but Nolan Catholic is going to bounce back and do good in district, I think. But what a win for DC.
Oh, absolutely. And even no context TXPS, that guy had to let everyone know that I've been rocking with DC since 2020 with the rolling ball chainsaw stuff. So nice for that guy to tweet out at us again. But Ryan, your thoughts on Nolan versus Dallas Christian, DC getting the win here?
Yeah, I mean, I always pick DC. I was telling Walker during the space and anybody that was on the space, I'm walking to my car as my dad's picking me up from the Faith Fourth Christian game, and he goes, "Why did you pick against DC? You know better than that." And I go, "Dad, you don't understand. I saw D1 versus D3, and I couldn't do it." And he goes, "Well, you're wrong." And so I was wrong. I was wrong. I was very much wrong. My dad knows how good DC is. Obviously, he was there and he saw all the legacy playoff games against DC. He knows how good they are. And so I should have known that. Like DC it's just been that team forever, man. Carney, Nettles, are just that whole team is just so impressive. And that Nolan Catholic team is very impressive as well. So to beat a team like Nolan Catholic just proves that DC at the end of the day is just nutty for D3. Like they're insane for how good they are with it just being in Division 3. We have to, if the rankings come out this next week, whatever, and you're upset that a D3 team is going to be top 5, then I'm going to tell you right now, then you don't know what you're talking about, because this team literally could beat this team could probably beat your team. I'm going to tell you that right now, unless you're a couple different teams. But yeah, DC's very, very tough team to beat this year, and I don't see them losing a single game in district.
Following their game Friday, we got a comment on our last video that says, "Seriously, it's getting embarrassing for you. At least the dude in the middle seems to get it." I mean, I don't know who the dude in the middle is they're referring to, but I guess he gets it. Yeah, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know how y'all picked against DC in that spot. And yet again, I can't stress enough, no disrespect to Nolan Catholic, but you don't pick against Dallas Christian. There are maybe 2 or 3 teams in the state you can pick against DC when they play. And I was reminded of that earlier this year and the state championships last year. I'm not going to make that mistake again, and hopefully y'all don't either. However, we will now move into the second game we're going to recap. That is Fort Worth Christian versus Grapevine Faith. Ryan, you were at this game live, so take it away.
Yes, my Friday night game. Fort Worth Christian ended up defeating Faith 27-20. Although Grapevine Faith never led in this game, they were really never out of it. With the final being just a 7-point game in favor of Fort Worth Christian, Faith really put up a battle. Both starting quarterbacks threw for over 250 yards. And everyone needs to know that this rivalry is not dead at all. 2025 quarterback Hogan Nelson threw the ball to a variety of his wide receivers, guys like Addison Kirton, Jacob Trimble, Jordan Green, Bryce Bradley. They all received about 4 to 5 catches apiece. But the 2 touchdowns came on the run from the 2-sided player that we already talked about, Luke Anderson. He literally put it in on defense, but it doesn't matter. He still scored 2 of the touchdowns for them on offense. So Luke Anderson was that all-around guy for them. Trimble may have not have had a touchdown receiving, but he had a kick 6 that I think, if I'm not mistaken, is his 6th touchdown of the year already. So, Trimble is doing amazing things this year for Fort Worth Christian. He took that back over 80 yards. And then for Faith, quarterback Chase Cross played a great game. And then it's against his brother's alma mater, Carson. Carson went to Fort Worth Christian, and Carson and the family are all in attendance for this game. And Chase played as best he could. He tried to string along a final drive to tie it back up, and things came short. A great, almost like 40, 50-yard pass down the field. I thought was going to put them in perfect position to go right marching down the field with less than a minute left. And yeah, he did all he could. The main player of the game for Faith, though, had to be 2024 running back Clayton Sebecki. He had 250 total yards, with that being rushing and receiving. And then he had a rushing and receiving touchdown apiece as well. So a great game from Clayton Sebecki. And you could see that Faith loves to use Sebecki, whether that be through the air or whether that be on the ground. And then Raybuck is the other guy for that team. Him and Raybuck go hand in hand with each other. He's a transfer from Coram Deo. And yeah, he also had a touchdown in this game. So I think the 2 of them will be that key, two punch for Grapevine Faith for him and what's called Sebeki and Raybuck. But I have a little question for y'all. Going back to Fort Worth Christian, with Argyle Liberty playing very well and Fort Worth Christian being undefeated, are these two teams the favorites going into that district?
So for context, that district is made up of Fort Worth All Saints, Fort Worth Christian, Liberty Argyle, Midland Christian, and Southwest Christian. I'm gonna say yes. I think they have to be. SCS is an honorable mention right there, but that loss to Grace Prep, I think, disqualifies them for being in those top two teams right now. Although that Hallettsville win is good for them. But Midland has started out 1-4. Some of these they've lost to good teams, but that 37-14 against Regents makes me really, really iffy on them. Fort Worth All Saints is 2-3. They lost to Prestonwood and Nolan. Fort Worth All Saints also, I think I could see them coming back in that conversation. But for right now, to answer your question, yeah, I think Fort Worth Christian and Liberty, a team that we thought was going to finish last in this district, are the two favorites right now. Walker, what do you think about it?
I think you're absolutely correct. I think Liberty and Argyle are the 1 and 2, 1A, 1B type of thing. I don't know how this district is gonna go, man. This is insane, and I'm very excited to see how it plays out.
No, yeah, and that's the scary thing is I can see, somehow if there's any 1-4 team that is going to play their way back into this district, it would be Midland Christian. So I think we can say right now the best two teams are probably FWC and Argyle Liberty. But if things look completely different at the end of district, I wouldn't be entirely surprised. But that concludes the analysis on that game. And now we move into Coram Deo versus St. Mark's. Senior quarterback Asher Wilburn throws for 261 yards and 4 touchdowns as St. Mark's beats Coram Deo 44-21 in another game that I chose incorrectly. Senior running back Keats Leffel contributed heavily on the ground, rushing for 132 yards and a touchdown. Junior Lucas Blumenthal had a great night receiving, going for 9 grabs, 133 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Looking at Coram Deo, senior Keegan Luna had 6 grabs, 105 yards, and a touchdown from senior Samuel Johnson, who had 270 yards passing as the Lions dropped the game here. I was just straight up wrong in this game. St. Mark's was a better team than I anticipated. I don't think Coram Deo is bad by any measure, but I think with this, 23-point loss to St. Mark's, that's kind of a red flag moving into this district as Coram Deo and Legacy's stock seems to be dropping. Grace Communities and Grapevine Faith seems to be rising. I think you might start to see a real discrepancy between teams in this district, with Bishop Dunn doing well as well. So I think right now, I'm not going to get too far into that speculation. We're talking about this individual game. Walker, what are your thoughts on St. Mark's besting Coram Deo here?
I think it shows that, hey, Dallas St. Mark's is not like a just walk in the park, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dallas St. Mark's might not be one of the top 3 teams in SBC 4A, but they're not to be like just belittled and stuff like that. And Asher Wilburn, coming into his first year, had a great game against Coram Deo. And so they've always had a couple athletes here and there, and Wilburn's one of them. Like you said, LaFell is one of them. Lucas Blumenthal, I think he's another good player. And we talked about Henry this last week, who's a dog as a 2025. So they have guys, look out for them. But yeah, congrats on the St. Mark's. And I was the one that picked St. Mark's, and I knew this team was the real deal. So
well, if Ryan Schroeder didn't just tail all my picks, then maybe there would be some difference. Okay, I'm sorry, Ryan. That was unnecessary. And you're gaining on me in the pick record, so I guess that was kind of unwarranted. And hey, even though you only got one word to pick this game, you get an unlimited amount of words to recap this game. So go ahead and tell us what you think.
Yeah, obviously I thought Coram Deo, was going to be right there with St. Mark's in this game, but St. Mark's is proving to be a really, really, really good team. All the SBC teams actually look pretty good this year, which is kind of ironic. They come to take on all these TAPS teams, and the SBC has just looked almost kind of superior to TAPS in some aspects. So St. Mark's has played very, very well. I know they have a couple wins this season. They beat my Legacy Eagles for that matter. And yeah, that's Asher Wilburn had a great game. And overall, I think the St. Mark's team, although they play in an SBC that is filled with a lot of it's kind of filled with a lot of teams that I think will be very, very talented. I think they can get a couple wins in there, in their district. It's gonna be a very, very hard district schedule for them. But yeah, I think the real question comes at this point is Coram Deo going to be able to compete. You have 3 spots that you have in that district for Legacy, Bishop Dunn, all that kind of stuff with Grace. Are Coram Deo and Legacy going to be left out? I think that's the question.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. We'll talk more in depth about that when it becomes time. But moving on to the next game, we're going to recap. It is Second Baptist versus Kinkaid, and probably one of my worst performances on this podcast to date. Just straight up embarrassing by me. Kinkaid wins 44-31 over Second Baptist in a come from behind victory. It's no secret that I picked Kinkaid on the broadcast, and then after we learned that David Capobianco hadn't played this season and was out, I freaked out, got cold feet, and did something unprecedented and switched my pick to Second Baptist, which looked like a good idea because it was 24-17 Second Baptist at the end of the first half, and then the wheels just started to come off the bus for Second Baptist in the second half. They more or less crumbled defensively and stalled offensively as Micah Bell ran all over this defense, taking some snaps at Wildcat as well and running for several long touchdowns. Now, although Micah said that he couldn't take our podcast seriously, is it time to start taking Kinkaid more seriously after this big win against Second Baptist? Walker, your thoughts?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think we always sometimes forget that we have the best player in private school with Enow Etta is on that Kinkaid team. He's just a monster, man. And like sometimes in games, you just got to give it to your best ball player and let him go to work, and that's exactly what they did. They did it with Dylan Bell last year. They're doing it with Micah this year. You just got to respect them. There's other guys for sure in that Kinkaid team. You can't win a game by yourself, but when you have a guy going to Notre Dame, it is for sure helpful. And I mean, credit to Kinkaid. I don't know. I can't tell you right now, man, if it's Second Baptist is not as good as we expected or just played a very, very tough non-district schedule. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do in district. But yeah, big win for Kinkaid, and with SBC district starting back up, it's gonna be interesting to see how they all do.
Yeah, for sure. I think I gave my very brief thoughts on this on the Twitter space when I talked for like 45 seconds in downtown Dallas after I got out of my Uber, but I don't think it's necessarily time to bail on Second Baptist. I think they're still a solid team. They have Murdoch, Chris, Kyle Cormorgan, other players. I think they're still a good team, and they haven't even hit district play yet. So there's even more time for them to, iron out these kinks. But I think there's certain issues. There's a certain one dimensity to their offense that need to get figured out. But I think these are certainly problems that they can iron out. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Kinkaid beating Second Baptist here?
I've known Kinkaid has been that team. I saw Micah play last year. I'm very, very, very high on I'm very high on Micah Bell, and I think last year when I saw Dylan and Micah playing together, I was very high on the two of them. And you know what? I actually did not know that Mr. Bianco,
Capo Bianco.
Mr. Capobianco was going to be out for this game. No one told me that. So, and I don't think that would have changed my decision just because I know how good Micah is. But yeah, Second Baptist did all they could. I think this is just a game where, Second Baptist really just can't outdo a guy like Micah, especially when the bloodline has guys playing at Georgia and getting playing time at Georgia. So, nothing that Second Baptist can do in this game. And I think Kinkaid, that the SBC is so good. I don't know. You got St. John's, you got ESD. There's a lot. It's gonna be very competitive for that 4A SBC championship spot. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely time to start giving Kinkaid the respect they deserve. And we will certainly see that when they take on one of the best teams in private school in St. Thomas later this week. More on that later. Moving into the next game, we're going to recap. That is Weatherford Christian at Munster Sacred Heart. Final score, Sacred Heart 20, Weatherford 13. And another game I was just flat out incorrect on. The Tigers best the new kids on the block here, 20-13, in a battle of D4 heavyweight contenders. The main story here is junior athlete Ryan Swarzinski. He literally sent us a DM on how to pronounce his name, and I still butchered it. Ryan Swarzinski. The star athlete rushed 33 times for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he showed his potential all of last season, and he's turning into a full-fledged star right before our eyes. I mean, Walker Sacred Heart has announced they are here to stay. They did it last week, and they did it again this week against Weatherford. Your thoughts on the Tigers getting the big win here?
That's a massive win for Sacred Heart. I honestly thought going into the season, I thought Weatherford was the team to beat in TAPS Division 4. And it's proven definitely now that what Munster Sacred Heart is the team to beat in TAPS Division 4. There's a big win. And the fact that Swarzinski is a junior means they have another year of this guy next year. And probably some other younger guys on the come up to come help him out. So it's just going to be very interesting to see how far Ryan can take him in this team. But can they take him back to the state championship again this year? That's going to be a hard task to do with Weatherford again. I mean, it's a 7-point win, so it's still a close game. But so you're going to have to probably face Weatherford again. You're going to have to face Lubbock Christian again, probably in the playoffs, which that's going to be a big matchup this week that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I mean, a big win for Sacred Heart. Another big win.
Certainly. So from one Ryan to another, Mr. Schroeder, what are your thoughts to Mr. Swarzinski and the Sacred Heart team on his performance and their big win over Weatherford Christian?
I've been so high on Swarzinski. Like I literally was high on him when I saw him when the Shiner game. When I saw them there on the slate for Shiner, I picked them because of how good I thought Ryan Swarzinski is. Like, in my opinion, he is. Yeah, he's the best player in D4. I think I could say that unless anyone wants to make you can say Stone Walker's very, very good player.
Bax Townsend.
Townsend's a very, very good player. But I don't know, man. There's no other guy that leads his team like Swarzinski leads Sacred Heart. And I think that, they go and beat Weatherford Christian, a team that, is probably about their skill level, I'd say. So I think that's just very, very impressive from him. And yeah, when you see him rushing 33 times in a game, you can get the understanding that he gets the ball a lot. So great win for Munster Sacred Heart here. And yeah, I mean, they're one of my favorites to win D4 for sure. So
I think we're going to get a great opportunity to see if anyone else leads their team like Swarzinski this week when Sacred Heart plays Lubbock Christian. We'll get to see if Bax Townsend leads his team like Swarzinski leads his team. More on that later. Moving into the last game we're going to recap, that would be Sabine, shout out East Texas at ESD, not at the ESD versus ESD at the Star. This game was very interesting. Ryan, you wanna explain what you saw here at the Star on Saturday?
Sabine is a really elite team. Well, you know what? This isn't a UIL podcast, so I can kind of go off on Sabine a little bit. Sabine, in my opinion, wasn't one of the best teams I've ever seen, but ESD still had a great performance. ESD put up numbers like no other. They played all their starters until the end of the first quarter. After the first quarter, it was just kind of a mob show. But I'm gonna tell you how it is. ESD is good. Sabine is very bad. After the first quarter, ESD was up 41-0, and they decided to take out the majority of the starters at that quarter break. 2023 quarterback Patrick Burke threw over 112 yards and 2 touchdowns before being taken out of the game. And then 2024 running back Colin Nicholson had 2 touchdowns for the Eagles as well. The craziest play of the night came from a high snap over 2025 quarterback Johnny Willingham's head, where he picked the ball up off the ground, then threw the ball downfield. It bounces off of Hutch Chipman's hands and like the defender's hands, bounces into the air, lands in Charlie Newhoff's hands, and then he takes it in for the touchdown. If you couldn't understand that from what I just said, I would recommend checking out on the Twitter what kind of play this was. This was nuts. Had it been one of the craziest plays of the night. But yeah, and then the guy that I think deserves so much respect to be talked about is 2024 DB Jackson Pennington. Great night. He had 2 interceptions, one of those being for a pick six. I think it was the second touchdown of the game. The second touchdown of the game came with 11 minutes remaining in the first quarter. So I think you could get a pretty good idea how this game went. But overall, this is a team that really isn't afraid of anyone, and they are coming up on a really big matchup this week. So, after Sabine with a 54-point win and a shutout, you will not see a 54-point win and a shutout this next week. They got a hard matchup that we'll preview in a little bit.
Certainly, and we are very excited to do that. But yeah, ESD is obviously a great team. I'm very, very excited to preview that game for them this Friday. But our last segment, before we get into our games of the week, we're just going to give some other news, some miscellaneous stuff. And a good question that we got on the last space is to name our surprises and disappointments from the seasons. I'm just going to say teams that, so I don't like the word surprises really. I'm going to say teams that have performed well and have performed lower than expectations. Teams that have performed well, I think Liberty Argyle, Fort Worth Christian, and Sacred Heart come to mind. I think Sacred Heart, twice I picked against them and twice they have proved me wrong. Fort Worth Christian starting 4-0, I think. Liberty Christian also having a great start, going from basically, in my projections, the seller of that district to I'm projecting them at the top now. I think they're all going to be very good this year. Disappointments, Midland Christian is performing under what I thought to this extent. I'm not really worried or concerned by the losses to the public schools. I am with that loss to Regents, and it wasn't even particularly close. I'm going to need to see something out of them quickly in district if I want to get back on that wagon. And Trinity Christian Addison, I don't think they're a bad team necessarily, or I don't think they're a bad team, but they've lost a lot of games to start the season, and it's going to be very interesting to see to what extent they can bounce back and compete in that district now that they're back in a district. Walker, you have any thoughts on surprises and underperforming teams from the season?
No, I think you're kind of aligned in what I was thinking. The only team that kind of has been lower than expectation is probably St. Michael's, just because they've gotten hurt a lot of the weeks. So that's another big one. Surprises, I think another one that's like raised expectation is Lutheran South having the great start that they had. I think that's just, having a good team, and it's going to be exciting to see how they do in district. But yeah, I think there's some other ones for sure, but yeah, I think those are some of the ones that are on the top of my head. I also thought about. Wait.
Oh yeah.
What about Tyler Grace?
Tyler Grace, absolutely. I can't believe I didn't think of that. I think I've talked so much about Grace before that I just blocked it out here. But yeah, certainly Grace has had a great non-district slate, and I don't want to jinx anything, but let's hope they can carry it forward into district. Ryan, your thoughts on surprises and disappointments from the young season?
I mean, y'all got it pretty much right. I'm so surprised by that Liberty team. I mean, that is just something that we got totally wrong. They are absolutely becoming the best team in that district for sure. And then Sacred Heart. It's a team that has done very, very well with Straczynski. And so that has been very impressive. But yeah, I keep saying disappointment wise, TCU Addison's one where you thought they were going to come after having a really, really good season in the independent side of TAPS last year, going in to D1 again. You thought they were going to put up a pretty good, and they haven't really played any district games yet, so I can't really talk to that, but they are 0-5. And that is something that you would have thought. But yeah, the St. Michael's one is a big one as well. You hate seeing those injuries and stuff like that because there's so much potential with that team. So but yeah, if there's something that I don't even know about some of these teams as well, but yeah, definitely. If we're on a positive side, I'm very happy to see how Liberty has been playing. You know what I'm going to say? It wasn't really a surprise, but I'm glad of how well they've turned out after the coaching change. Prestonwood. I think Prestonwood's a good one to put on there. They've been pretty good for a while, but they had the coaching change of Cunningham going to Midland, and they lost that first game, but they haven't lost since then. So it's like, I think that's a kind of a good surprise as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think all of those teams have, exceeded expectations to that extent. So congratulations to them. And we'll see. I mean, I think with some of these teams that have been underperforming, it's more of something where you can you can pick teams when they're at their low, they're at kind of a low stock price, if I'm saying this correctly. I think that there's some teams here that are underperforming now that really have a chance to pick up in district. So I think no team is dead in the water by any means at this point. I think every team has a great opportunity to pick it up moving forward. But the last thing that we will cover before we move into our games of the week, Enow Etta, arguably the best player in all of private school. We haven't talked a lot about him this season so far, but he's been putting up some crazy stats. In 4 games, he has 46 tackles, 12 TFLs, 7 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries, 2 block punts, all while every team is scheming and running every single play away from him because he is far and away the best player on the field in every game he plays. Walker, Enow Etta, haven't talked a lot about him yet this season, but we got to give him his flowers now. Your thoughts on the edge player's dominant season to this point?
Yeah, it's what you expect from Enow Etta in TAPS Division 3. The highest ranking commit in the Michigan's 2023 class, by the way. That's a big honor for him. But yeah, Covenant has done good. They're 0-4 this year, but Etta is still getting his, man. They're probably scheming away from him and running away from him every single play, because no one's going to be able to block him in TAPS Division 3, and that's what you expect. And he's still doing really, really good. But very, very impressive performance. One of the best guys who stayed loyal all 4 years of high school to Covenant Christian, which a lot of guys wouldn't do that, But you got to give him his flowers that the big 4-star top 150 player in the country decides to stay in TAPS Division 3 at Covenant Christian, and spends his education and career there. And you got to give credit, or not, you got to look out for his younger brother, who's a 2025, I believe, who looks like he'll be the next one in that Etta family to be very, very dominant in the game of football.
Absolutely. Ryan, your thoughts on Etta's stat line up to this point?
He's been very, very impressive, and I think we've known how good he's been for a while. Obviously, the thing with him has been he's played on that Covenant team in D3 this entire time, and I think we kept talking about, even you can go back to some of our clips. Even like on the first season of the podcast, and we're talking about Etta, and we're talking about how we're like, yeah, D3 has D1 talent, and little did we know that D3 has the best talent in all of private school. He is like probably the best player to come out this year. So I think it's cool. It's cool to see that you can see guys this low in the school size kind of private school, and you can still see them going to Michigan, right? That's and he's gonna play at Michigan too eventually after a couple of years. So like it's very impressive, and I'm very happy. And you're so right, Walker, about the loyalty. Like that is straight loyalty to Covenant Christian. So all power to him. That's a really, really impressive thing for him to do.
Absolutely.
And the thing about it is, right, like mentioning what you said, Ryan, we were the first person to talk about Enow Etta out of any media source anywhere. And so it shows like, hey, we kind of know what we're talking about here on our podcast. But just seeing the rise that he's done the past couple of years is just very, very impressive. From a guy who this was his first year playing football, to learning the game of football, to changing his body into just an absolute unit over a couple of years. The time, the effort, the discipline, the commitment he's put in the past couple of years to get to where he is today is just amazing. And you got to give credit to him. And it kind of shows guys, hey, like you're on this podcast, you're listening to this podcast, and you might be from TAPS Division 4, Division 3, SPC 3A, some of the smaller divisions. There's guy, you can make it. If you have what it takes, you have the talent, you can make it. It doesn't take, the big schools to do it. If you can play, they will find you. You just got to be able to play. And that's all I want to say to that, because some guys sometimes want to leave and do all that when you can play at your division and at your level and still be dominant. For example, Shiner, right? Shiner St. Paul. They have another school in Shiner. A&M has a commitment from a kid from Shiner, which is like a 2A high school. Hallettsville 3A. Jonathan Brooks that went to Texas the past couple of years. There's guys from smaller schools and private schools would beat those teams that went and committed, and went and play at a Division 1 level. I just want to say you can play at the smallest private schools, and that's why we want to give recognition to private schools, because some people give it a bad credit, but there's talent in every single division of TAPS, SBC, TCAL, TCAF. It is what it is.
Very well stated. But that will actually conclude the first half of this episode, and we're actually going to cut now, and you'll see us in a few seconds. For us, it'll be tomorrow, and we were going to have a special guest picker for this episode. I'm very excited to debut who that will be, but see you in a second. And welcome back. We are now going to do our pick section of the episode. And as you'll see, there were 3 people before. Now we have 4. I don't know how that happened, but we have Palmer Nix here with us today as a guest picker. Palmer Nix is a graduate of Dallas Christian, played at Georgetown, is now at TCU, back around the DFW area. Palmer, how are you doing today? And what are you thinking of being a guest picker today?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be guest picker. I kind of got to do that a couple of weeks ago, but now I'm excited to be in the fray and get to make these picks live and have to face the music afterwards. So I'm excited.
Oh yeah, for sure. Trust me, you'll have to face some criticism from the audience. You'll have to do what we do every week. But we do have to shoot this off a little bit, because both me and Walker played against Palmer, and I went back and reviewed the film and confirmed Palmer is without a doubt one of the scariest people I ever played against in high school. The dude was, I just remember, because everyone knew who Palmer Nix was in our division, at least. I mean, you were the district and division MVP, if I remember correctly, just an absolute freak at linebacker. And I just remember going out there on defense. I'm like, please don't let this dude pancake the ever living goodness out of me. I was like, that would look very, very bad. But I mean, Palmer, what are some of your fondest memories of playing at DC and just kind of dominating TAPS?
Well, I got to be honest. There's a lot of great memories. In my career, I was fortunate enough to get to play on varsity my freshman year, so it was a long kind of high school career, getting 4 years of it. Going to state freshman and sophomore year, that was an incredible memory. Obviously, falling short of both of those made it a little bit less sweet, that's for sure. But no, just great memories and forming bonds and brotherhoods with guys that I still connect with on a weekly basis. Whenever I was 14, 15, 16, 17. I think the nature of TAPS is that, every year there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that kind of, might stand out from other teams. But once you hit playoffs and you're definitely in district play and stuff like that, things can get, a lot tighter than what you'd expect from the outside looking in. So I always look forward to the playoffs, and, on paper, you might say, hey, DC should win by X amount or vice versa. But once you're out there playing on the field, all that goes away. So I really enjoyed kind of that challenge and getting to play with a lot of different people, because we would have, 2 or 3 transfers come in from different schools each year and getting to meet new people. But and then really just offensively kind of getting to be kind of a jack of all trades, getting to play some wing back my freshman year, getting to play at fullback sophomore, junior, senior year, and then depending on what offense, because you all know the infamous single wing that we run, but then we'd also sit there and put Garrett Cody at quarterback and spread it out and go 5 wide. And get to do a little bit of wildcat quarterback. That was my favorite part for sure.
Yeah, Cody was a dog back in the day, man. I remember he just tore our defense up most of those times playing him, man.
Yeah, he was an athlete, man, for sure. But yeah, playing personally, the most selfish answer I would have to give would be wildcat quarterback, because it felt like middle school again, and just getting to go run, and it was fun.
No, for sure. Yeah, I like what you said about the playoffs, because that is what a lot of people say. It's when the season really starts. You can do however well you do in district, but everyone is 0-0 going to the playoffs. And I think that's a mindset that DC has adopted, and it's a reason why there have been such a traditional talent under Mike Wheeler up to this point. I do have to ask you a question, though, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think it was your senior year. One of y'all's running backs was number 10. He did this really weird, we called it the coral spin. It was this really weird spin thing, and none of us could tackle. What is that dude's name?
Garrett Gilcrease. And
That's who it is.
I love that y'all coined a term for it, because we would dog him and film about it. And he's probably going to see this. But we would call it the, I guess just to give you a little bit of background, he has a really long torso and really little legs. And we would call it the torso tornado. So yeah, anytime he pulled that out of his bag of tricks, we made sure to give him a hard time about it, and it seemed to work pretty much every time. I think he was like a perfect like 6 for 6 on the year, but I don't know, it's kind of unexplainable. I'd never seen anything like it, still haven't.
Dude, it worked against us. I was going back and watching
Yeah.
film, and I was watching your film just to, jog some memories. And I saw him do that, and it just made me remember that dude did that against me. And I was like, in real time, I was like, what is going on? I've never seen anything like that, but I guess it worked. So shout out to him.
Yeah, that's funny, bro. That proves kind of the long lasting kind of thought that we had on it, which was just we were assuming that in real time a defender is thinking like they're just confused and like what's going on, and then next thing you know he's gone. But yeah, definitely an interesting move, but I think it panned out.
The torso tornado, that is arguably the best thing I've ever heard. Walker, do you have anything else you wanna ask Palmer?
Do you remember playing us and putting up like 60 on us? I believe that first game, your junior year, first round of playoffs. I remember I was watching highlights as well, and your second play is literally coming off the edge unblocked and killing our freshman quarterback at that time, who weighed probably $140. Yeah.
I kind of felt bad for the kid. Honestly.
Yeah, it happens. We weren't good. Now we're really good now. So it's, the tide changes every year. But speaking of that, how like some programs, go down, they go up. The culture of Dallas Christian keeps y'all consistently on the top year after year after year. Can you talk about like the culture that Coach Wheeler has set there and kind of just the overall environment of Dallas Christian?
Absolutely. And I'm going to start with a quick sidebar about that play, because that kind of jogged my memory. I remember going off to the sideline and my coach kind of barked at me a little bit because I was really supposed to be man on the tight end.
Yeah, and he went off. Yeah,
that's what he was in my ear about. But whenever, I don't know, in high school, I relied a bunch on instinct, and I kind of just felt that it was going to be a play action, and then if I just kind of shot the edge and could go unblocked, and it turned out well being the forced fumble or whatever. But yeah, that's why I remember that one, because I got an earful, but he told me I made up for it. But yeah, it's kind of funny.
That was one of the I remember ball snap.
Like it wasn't a designed blitz.
Well, yeah, I just remember ball snap and just seeing my quarterback in the backfield. Like it happened so quickly. And from there, like that moment, I was like, okay, this guy's for real. Like seeing it on film, I was like, all right, I know this guy's for real. But playing, that was like one of the first plays of the game too. I remember it was like one of our first drives, and it was just nuts. But yeah, if you want to, actually, yeah.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, man. So Coach Wheeler obviously has done a great job, and actually just sent in the video the other day for his. Just sent a video the other day for his 300th win. I think he's second right now in active coaches in Texas and wins. And I think something that, there's obviously a lot of funny stories that come out with him. He's an old school mentality coach, but I think, going from the high school level to FCS for 4 years, and then now at the Power 5, I think it rings true across whether it's any three of those levels of football, is that, you have to have a sense of team. And as cliche as that sounds, you can't have a bunch of individuals. And that's probably the number one thing that he would preach, is that it doesn't matter if you're some 4 or 5 star recruit. It doesn't matter if you have been here since kindergarten and you're just happy to be on the team or whatever it is. I think there was a real sense of like equality amongst the players. From his level, he wouldn't, there's no special treatment. Like he's sitting in there, in my ear after I won some Player of the Week award, and I'd missed a block in practice, and he goes, "Oh, you won an award, and now all of a sudden you don't think you have to block." Like that stuck out to me. So he definitely does not accept or tolerate prima donnas or anything of that nature. So he's done a really good job of building a culture, and then obviously sustaining it, because I don't think he's switched up with that. But he's also done a good job of adapting with the types of players, because it's, generationally speaking, like kids growing up 15, 16, 17-year-olds are different than 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So he's kind of done a good job of blending his old school with also, kind of how guys I think in this day and age, kind of prefer to be coached, but
For
he's
sure.
definitely a stickler and a really, really good coach.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to guess that at least 50% of our audience is like rabid Dallas Christian fans. So they're really going to enjoy you being on here and you bringing back memories of DC, just pummeling everyone in D2. Y'all's fans are crazy, man. I've said that before, but like I could say 50 good things and one bad thing about Dallas Christian, and I will get hounded to no end about the one bad thing. But I appreciate the passion. It's something that I really deeply respect. Ryan, do you have anything else you want to ask Palmer before we get into these games?
I think y'all asked stuff about your school, so I have to ask about my school. I went to Legacy Christian, Palmer, and I think they're literally, I mean, there's nothing I can really say that would have gone with Dallas Christian and Legacy. I think every year it was just Dallas Christian beats Legacy in playoffs, and I think that was the end of our span every playoff time. But I guess I think I'll ask because our junior year team would have been the best team, so would have been fall of 2018 would have probably been that one. And I think honestly in that year, I have to assume we played Dallas Christian first round every single year. It seemed like, but whether it be that year or any other year, do you remember any of those Legacy Christian games? And do you remember just stomping us that first round of all those years?
I absolutely remember Legacy Christian. So I want to say my third or fourth game, as I kind of alluded to earlier, playing as a freshman. And so I remember that one particularly. And then I kind of remember the last one because there was this, you probably remember him. I think he was like a 6'6" tight end or something that I was tasked with manning up pretty much the whole game. And so that was kind of a big challenge for me at the time. It doesn't matter if you're, a quote unquote guy on your team or in your district. In high school, a lot of times it's kind of rare for there kind of be a moment where like, hey, you got to step up and kind of out of your comfort zone. Because a lot of the times you're kind of just riding that high of like, hey, I know, what I'm capable of and just kind of being comfortable. But that was, being tasked with covering a guy that was significantly taller than me, had 7-8 inches on me at the time. That definitely stuck out to me. And I want to say we played y'all every single year of my career.
It seemed
I
like
think
it.
of. Yeah.
I think the other question I was going to ask real quick before we get into the picks is, this is probably a question that a lot of people would wonder that are Dallas Christian fans, but what do you think was that hardest team that you ever played in high school? The hardest team that you think you ever played, whether that be a non-district, district, is there a game or a team that stuck out to you that you thought like really was the toughest competition you played against?
Mm-hmm. That would have to be my, oh, go ahead.
I'm going to guess it's the team down in Cedar Hill, or is it a different one?
Well, that would definitely be the toughest district opponent,
Right.
whether it be legal or not. After, I don't know, 2-3 years, and the kind of cat was out of the bag, but for all of us juniors and seniors that were part of that, losing in semis, it didn't sit too well because we were kind of thinking, well, this is a couple years too late. But anyways, I would have to say Bishop Dunn, which was my first career game. And it was back when they were loaded with, I want to say 13 Division I commits, maybe more. 13 is minimum. Like it could have very easily been 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And so I was 14 at the time, and that was my first high school experience. Like the last time I played was on a middle school field. So that was quickly thrusted me into the varsity role, and really just shell shock. Like I want to say their quarterback was committed to like an Ole Miss or something like that. The receiver was committed to Oklahoma State. Just freak athletes everywhere, and being 5'10.5", 5'11", 180 at the time, playing linebacker versus 220-pound running back, huge lineman. Like we got that year, we went to state, and I want to say 12-1 or 13-1 going into the state game versus Parish, and the first game of the season was Bishop Dunn, and I think we lost like 52-0 or something.
Wow.
Like it was, yeah.
Oh.
So that was definitely the toughest game I would say I played, but it was kind of nice because I went into it like after that game, I told myself in it rang true, which was that, you know, I'm never gonna have to play a game that hard again. I got it out of the way. Yeah, there was never another game like that in my career, so it was kind of nice.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. It's funny you say all that stuff about Cedar Hill. I actually wrote an article doing a deep dive on what it was like to play against them that we put on our website earlier this year. And it was very fun to write about the rise and then subsequent fall of Cedar Hill. It could really be turned into a reality show. And I think Max Prep's already turned it into a reality show, but you can go watch that if you want. That's not our job here. Moving on into the games of the week. The first game we're going to start with Houston St. Thomas versus Houston Kinkaid. On Friday, Kinkaid will travel to St. Thomas in a battle of the birds of prey. Kinkaid secured a huge win last week, a 44-31 come-from-behind victory against Second Baptist. Micah Bell does it all for the Falcons and is a Power 5 prospect for a reason. St. Thomas has one of the best offenses in the state, featuring Dante Lewis, Shaper Henderson, Luke Edgecombe, and Johan Cardenas. You know, Kinkaid made me look like a fool in more ways than one last week, but I am nothing if not stubborn. St. Thomas is an absolute wagon and impossible to pick against. Give me the Eagles in this contest. Walker Lott, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Kinkaid proved us wrong last week, Wes, big time. But and you know, Micah Bell is that guy, probably the best athlete in all private school this year. But I think balanced wise, you got to go St. Thomas. I think overall, top to bottom at every position, I think St. Thomas is just the real deal. And, you know, Dante Lewis and Johan Cardenas are going to be those guys leading that team over Kinkaid this week. So give me St. Thomas.
That would be 2 for St. Thomas. Ryan Schroeder, your thoughts?
Yeah, I picked Micah Bell and Kinkaid last week, and I was the only one right on the podcast about that. I had a strong feeling about Micah Bell, and I really do think Micah Bell is that one of the best in all private school. But I'm going to go against Micah Bell and Kinkaid here, and I'm actually going to go with St. Thomas just because I really do feel like St. Thomas is that team. St. Thomas hasn't lost a game yet, and I really don't see them losing a game for a while. So, give me St. Thomas here. I just think overall, just they're one of like those top 4 schools in all of private school. So I think they're over Kinkaid in this game.
Okay, Palmer, I'm going to give some background before you give your pick. There's a phenomenon that happens that every time that all of us pick a certain team and nobody picks the other team, we get screenshotted and then people tweet that graphic at us and basically clown us. So I'm going to kind of beg you to pick Kinkaid here, but you are free to make your own pick. What are you taking in this game?
Well, I hate to let you down, Wes, but I'm going with St. Thomas. You know, bring on all the animosity from Kinkaid, but they're not going to be screenshot because Houston St. Thomas is going to win. They're 4-0. They scored 42 in all 4 of their games, and I don't see them slowing down. So I'm going with St. Thomas.
Dude, you could be on this podcast. I like the flair for the dramatic.
That sounded really good. Yeah.
Okay, so that scares the ever-living daylights out of me that we have 4 teams on St. Thomas, but that is how it goes. Second game, we're going to preview Munster Sacred Heart at Lubbock Christian. And what could be the best Division IV game of the season. Sacred Heart is red hot after knocking off 4-time defending state champion St. Paul, and the next big thing, the next game, Weatherford Christian. Junior athlete Ryan Swarzynski leads the Tigers with help from Clayton Benzer, Gus Ganson, and others. Lubbock Christian is led by senior quarterback / safety Bax Townsend and have been on a tear so far this season. They opened district by clipping Waco Riker 56-0 last week and look to upend Sacred Heart this week. Here's the thing. I've picked against Sacred Heart twice this year, and I've been wrong twice. Only an absolute imbecile will do the same thing a third time. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And if you talk to anyone that knows me well enough, they'd probably classify me as insane. Give me Lubbock Christian in this game. Walker Lott, your thoughts?
Wow, I did not expect that from you, man. You see, I actually we haven't talked about Lubbock Christian a lot this year, Wes, just because, you know, I mean, they're up in Lubbock, so you don't get to talk about teams up there a lot, but you got to give them credit with the big 4 wins they've had so far. I actually I went to George's in Waco after my game I had to go cover, and I saw some of the Lubbock Christian fans there, including the Bax Townsend family. I know y'all listen sometimes, so shout out to y'all. Very amazing people. Great people up there in Lubbock. But I guess we forgot, man, that Lubbock Christian was truly like a top 5 private school team in D3 last year that just lost to a better TCS Lubbock team. But they're still really, really good, and they still have a quarterback last year in Bax Townsend who came back this year and just lit it up. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Lubbock Christian in that one. I forget how good this Bax Townsend kid is. And the athletes like Brady Simmons, who supposedly has been on a tear these past couple of weeks. Expect big things from those guys. And the Eagles, I believe, up in Lubbock.
The Eagles would be correct. Ryan Schroeder, I now know who you're going to pick based on you sneaking away to grab what you grabbed. Who are you taking in this matchup?
You know, it's so funny you don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you didn't.
I think I do.
No. So basically last year, I was a big fan of Lubbock Christian. I picked Lubbock Christian in a lot of games, and I honestly am a big, Bax Townsend fan. I think this Lubbock Christian team is very, very solid. Whenever they moved down to D4, I thought that was kind of just like a DC moving down type of thing, where it's like, you're really going to move down a team that caliber. But I am a Ryan Straczynski fan, so this is kind of like a battle of both ends in this game. And as much as I was on the side of Ryan Straczynski and how much of a true caliber player he is, I do have to pick, with my Lee Corso style here, I do have to pick Lubbock Christian here, just because I think in this game, Lubbock Christian will take down Sacred Heart, but I think Sacred Heart could still have an amazing rest of the season. And I don't think there's a lot of teams that can get in their way, except for just this Lubbock Christian team.
Well stated. So that is 3 for Lubbock Christian. Palmer, you already know our spiel on the jinxing the games, but who are you going to take in this matchup?
I have to apologize once more, Wes.
I
got Lubbock Christian. I think it's no doubt that they both have pretty high-powered offenses if you look at the box scores for both of their games thus far. But I'm going to have to give Lubbock Christian the edge. And I think them moving down from being a top 5 team in Division 3 to now being a part of the Division 4, even though Sacred Heart, I believe, was in the state championship last year and lost.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm still going to give Lubbock Christian the edge.
Bro, you really did do your prep. I got to salute you for that.
I mean, hey, we got to think about this, Wes. Like, we're going Lubbock, but Munster's going to put up a fight. Like, it's not going to be.
That's why that's why this terrifies me. This is the second straight game we're all 4 on the same side of, and honestly, I could see it happening in the next game as well. So, we're playing with fire here. Game number 3. What were you going to say, Walker?
No, I mean, just those 2 wins over Shiner and Weatherford. I mean, they're on a hot streak of beating some of the best teams in D4. But yeah, let's keep going.
Just don't think about it. It'll be easier. Third game, John Cooper at Cistercian. Cooper started out district play strong last week with a 60-3 rout of Oak Ridge after slipping up against TWCA to start the season. Cooper's rattled off 4 straight wins, scoring 50+ in 3 of them and never allowing more than 14 points. The Dragons have a myriad of talent, including Vaughn McKeever, Dean Calhoun, Keeler Sullivan, and will have a powerful offense without a doubt and a stout defense. However, they will meet their toughest district test this week when Cistercian rolls into town. Coach James Burke, quarterback Dan O'Toole, wide receiver Michael Peterman, linebacker Noso Unini, and safety JP Ropolo will try to prove to SBC 3A that they are the premier team and not the Dragons. This is another agonizing game for me to pick because both of these teams are virtually equal in my opinion, and it's so hard to differentiate. However, I'm rolling with the Dragons here. I really like Coach DeHaven, Vaughn McKeever, some of these kids they brought in. I think they rebounded very nicely following that TWCA slip up. I think Cistercian is a great team and Cooper's toughest test for sure. But if you make me pick here, I'm going to say Cooper. Walker, your thoughts?
I'm going to pick John Cooper in this one as well. I think the big difference maker in this game is going to be Dean Calhoun. The 2025 athlete has almost 500 rushing yards this year with 8 touchdowns. I mean, this kid is going to be the real deal in the next couple of years. Just mark my words. And I think he's going to be the difference maker of how shifty, how athletic, and just the versatile player that he is on the field. So in that, they're always going to throw the ball, and Vaughn McKeever is going to get his. But I really think this man is going to be the difference maker in this game. So give me John Cooper.
Interesting. Ryan, your thoughts in this game?
Yeah, I think John Cooper should be 5-0 right now, if I'm being completely honest. I know Cistercian beat my Legacy Eagles, and Cistercian is definitely a really, really good team this year. There's nothing else more to say about Cistercian than they are a talented team, and they are that second team in SBC 3A, but the team that is above them is John Cooper. This is the championship matchup from last year that I saw. And obviously I saw Von McKeever, I saw Jackson Pierce, who's now gone, but I saw Von McKeever in action with John Cooper. I know how good he is. I know how good this offense for John Cooper is, and they have some really good wins this year. Cypress Christian, they have a win against really blowout win against Oak Ridge, and Oak Ridge has some good wins this year. I mean, this is a John Cooper team that is very, very special. Although I think this game will be close. And I think you could see this matchup in, if I can do my math right, you can see this matchup in like 4 or 5 weeks from now. So in the state championship, I do say this with all sincerity. John Cooper is just that team. So I have John Cooper in this one over Cistercian. And no, I'm John Cooper. John Cooper in this game. Sorry.
He was gonna say something, Wes. He was gonna say something.
Boys, we are not doing a very good job of hedging our bets here, and it's starting to scare me. Palmer, for the last pick, your thoughts on John Cooper for Cistercian?
I hate to follow a trend here, but I also want to go with my gut. And my gut tells me John Cooper. I think, obviously, for all the reasons that y'all have listed, but I also think that, it's no secret it's going to be a close game and that they both have pretty high-powered offenses. But I think John Cooper has, a little bit more of an edge in terms of that and playmakers, but also I think they have a little bit more stout defense. So I think that'll probably come in the clutch for them, and kind of fourth quarter, it's a one possession game or even tied. I think the defense is going to be able to hold up, and so I give John Cooper the edge.
I'd have to agree with that. I don't know if we've ever had everyone on the same side through 3 games, so that's just a little bit unprecedented in the history of this podcast, but we'll see if that trend continues over our next 2 games. 4th game, Bellaire Episcopal at Episcopal School of Dallas. In a battle of the Episcopals, it's going to be very difficult to anticipate, in my opinion, who takes this game. Bellaire Episcopal comes into the contest averaging 32.4 points per game and allowing 18, with athletes such as Carson Gordon, Lane Linebarger, Andre Thompson, and Maddox Morgan. Episcopal is going to field an elite team week in and week out that can compete with anyone in the state. Looking at ESD, who Ryan got to cover last week, the Eagles are averaging 39 points per game and allowing 15. Between Patrick Burke, Andrew Carey, Blair Brennan, the Eagles have coasted through their non-district slate undefeated. To be honest, I could flip a coin here and be okay with whoever that coin chooses, but it's not how we do things here. And if you're forcing me to take a side, I'm going to have to take Bellaire Episcopal. It could be familiarity bias. It could be because I've seen firsthand how good Bellaire Episcopal is, but I really do think with Carson Gordon, Lane Linebarger, Andre Thompson, I think that their offense competes with anyone in the state. I think ESD is good. I think Bellaire has a slight edge here. Walker, your thoughts?
This is a close one, man. This is going to be a really good dogfight. And ESD has no in regular season. They saw them last year. They went 10-0 in the regular season. This year they look really, really good. I think I don't want to do it, but I think I'm going to get a Bellaire here, man. That Parrish close game just gets me, man. Being a 7-point game with Parrish, it makes me gravitate towards the Knights. I think like Carson Gordon, like you said, Wes, is the real deal. I really like Madden Morgan. I love Andre Thompson. The speed that he brings is just impressive. And I'm going to go the Knights in this one, man. It's a tough pick and it's hurting me, but I'm going to go the Knights.
Ryan, I really need you to take ESD here, and I'm hoping you will because you are more familiar with them. Your thoughts on this game?
No, my exact point was going to be right with Walker on this one. I mean, you have to realize that this Bellaire team was only 7 points away from Parrish. It's a game that no one else has really become that close to Parrish, even private or public. Obviously South Oak Cliff, whatever, but no one. This is Bellaire. This is Bellaire right here that only lost by 7 points. This is the number 2-3 team in all of private school. I mean, this is the team that everybody knows as being the top dog, a team that we knew preseason was going to be really, really good. But yeah, I just saw ESD, just saw Patrick Burke. I just saw that entire team. I know how that team is. They're actually insanely tall. They're really big. A team that honestly is kind of frightening to play against, but yeah, man, I got Bellaire here, and I think it's more just the reality of like the ESD has good wins. The Liberty wins a very good win. The Grapevine Faith was a good win. I just, in my opinion, I think any team that can go head to head and clash with Parish like that deserves, my respect. So I got Bellaire here.
All right. Well, I'm becoming increasingly terrified. Palmer, your pick on this game.
I'm going with ESD.
Ooh.
I believe they're hosting Bellaire. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
They
I
are.
played at ESD a couple times in my career. I think they will pack it out. I think it'll obviously be a great environment. And, maybe that crowd noise will affect Bellaire a little bit. I think all y'all raised good points about, especially the Parish, I think being the overarching point. But, someone kind of learned in college is that sometimes playing that game where you sit there and go, well, they lost to them by this much, we lost to them by that much. I think I mentioned it earlier about obviously different circumstances, but UT going in and playing Alabama and losing by 1, and then turn around a week or 2 later and losing to Texas Tech, and no one would sit there and say Texas Tech would stand a chance for Hispanic. So I'm gonna go with ESD on this one.
Ooh.
I do really appreciate that. And yeah, no, it's one of my favorite phrases is that the transitive property does not apply in sports. We use it as a measuring stick sometimes, just kind of as a speculative tool, but really it doesn't matter until those two teams get on the field and play each other. And we'll see that for sure come Friday. And in the last game, and surely Palmer's favorite game to pick, it is going to be Dallas Christian at Fort Worth Christian. In a battle of undefeateds, DC will attempt to knock off a 5th and final higher division team when they take on Fort Worth Christian on Friday. The Eagles are going to be a tough test with the likes of quarterback Hogan Nelson, wide receiver Jacob Trimble, and running back linebacker Luke Anderson. They will look to stomp DC and establish themselves as a premier team in TAPS D2. Lining up across from them, the Chargers will try to best the Cardinals for a second straight year. The usual suspects are going to contribute for the Chargers, so expect big games from Carney, Hernandez, Nettles, Burke, and Nix, Porter, not Palmer. I think a lot of people remember my rant prior to this game last year, and honestly, you can bet your house and your neighbor's house on Dallas Christian again this year. It's certainly worth more money now than it was this time last year. Put everything you own on Dallas Christian in this game and then some. Walker Lott, your thoughts? There's no way you. Oh,
Can I read some stats?
Wait. Okay, you know what? Just go ahead.
Shout out to our guys at LSCSN. This is going to be the 62nd meeting between Dallas Christian and Fort Worth Christian, and the biggest rivalry probably in private school. Before the 96 regular season, DC was winning 18-14, and overall the Chargers lead the thing 41-20, going 19-4 since 2002. Fort Worth Christian has won 9 straight between 74 and 82, and Coach Wheeler at the helm is 28-8 since 1992. But I'm gonna pick Fort Worth Christian in this one.
Oh my.
One of the coaches, I think added us or something like that and said, pick against DC again. We want it. We want that to happen. And when you want it, and I'll give it to you. And I'm going to pick Fort Worth Christian in this one. I think they've been on a hot streak, man. And, they have put up really good numbers against some really good schools. And technically, they tied in points. Dallas Christian put 34 on Bishop Dunn. Fort Worth Christian put 34 on Bishop Dunn, and they allowed less points, 19-21 in those games. So because of that, in vice of opponents, the transitive property doesn't always work. I'm just giving you my reasoning and everything. I just think, Fort Worth Christian was close last year, right? They were very close. They were hurt here and there, and I think they're going to come back for revenge. So give me Fort Worth Christian in this one.
You literally never learn. We were talking about this earlier in this episode. Bishop Dunn, Fort Bend Christian, Bishop Lynch, Nolan Catholic. They've already knocked all those teams off, and you're still picking against them.
I am.
Insanity. Ryan Schroeder.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, Wes, right now. Do not bet your house on Dallas Christian to win this.
No,
game.
bet your house and
No.
your neighbor's house.
No. No, you should not. You really shouldn't. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a lot different this year. Forward Christian is just a better team this year than they were last year. All the guys are older, all the guys are stronger, all the guys are better. I'm telling you that. It's just in all reality, Forward Christian is a much better team this year. However, this is Dallas Christian, and I cannot believe I keep picking against them. So I can't do it again. I know how good Dallas Christian is, and honestly, if you haven't learned anything, Walker, the transitive property doesn't work. We just learned that. Palmer just told us that. It doesn't work. So we have to assume here that just because, the Bishop Dunn game went one way, went another, it's not going to go that way. I have Dallas Christian here, but what I will say is Forward Christian's fans traveled the Grapevine Faith to then stand on the side of the field and scream at the players like no other. I'm telling you right now, Forward Christian's going to pack out this entire place at Forward Christian. And, if DC travels, but I'm telling you, Forward Christian is nuts, dude. Their fans are nuts. And if they allow the sideline access that Grapevine Faith allowed, they're so much closer to you. They're so much in your face. Like, I don't know. I have Dallas Christian in this game, though.
If Fort Worth Christian fans are nuts, then DC fans are clinically insane. I can tell you that for a fact. They are going to show out without a doubt. Palmer Nix, this game needs no introduction for you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, this might come across as a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to have to go with Dallas Christian in this one. I think, as you mentioned, it's going to be one heck of an atmosphere. Forward Christian's absolutely going to pack it out. I played there once in middle school and 2 times at least in high school. And that's definitely something that stuck out to me the most, is that it's going to be, they're probably going to do a blackout game. It's going to be pretty rowdy in there. But I think, it might take a little bit of adjusting. Hopefully Dallas Christian gets off to a fast start. But I think it's kind of a 3-headed monster when you look at it, between Carney, he plays so poised as a sophomore. I think going in and winning the state championship his freshman year and being as involved as he was, and not just kind of a game manager, but having a real impact. I think you can always rely on him to make plays. Obviously, Will Nettles is a freak athlete, and you just need to get the ball to him and get him in space. And then you got, I think the very dominant Zach Hernandez, who, looks like a power back and like a goal line back, but he'll sit there and run someone over, but he's also incredibly shifty and very quick. And obviously running behind, like y'all mentioned, the Bulls and Porter and Cole. So I think that makes up for kind of the offensive side of things for Dallas Christian, and I think they'll be able to continue to have success and won't be a problem finding the end zone. And then I think games are won and lost in the turnover battle a lot of times, and if they could just get 1 or 2 turnovers, I think that really helps seal the deal and be the biggest difference maker, whether that be a pick or a fumble or a turnover on downs. But I really do think it'll be a close one, but I got Dallas Christian probably by about a touchdown, maybe 2.
There you have it. Go on.
I want to ask one thing. I just want to say, I think the Jacob Trimble versus Will Nettles battle as a wide receiver DB is going to be fun to watch. That's going to be a highlight, just popcorn ready type of action. I also want to ask, we know this is probably one of the better rivalries in private school, Palmer. How is it playing in this game? What does it mean to those guys?
Oh, I think especially for the guys that have been there and through middle school and on, which probably makes up about half the team, maybe at Dallas Christian, I would say, just shooting from the hip. It means a lot because that's something, you grow up playing them in middle school. You hear about the history. I think the pep rallies have a little extra zing to them. And there's definitely a feeling of animosity between the two schools, especially whenever you hear about stories back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I don't know, I think there's just something kind of intangible and innate that's built in within this rivalry in this game. And I think it means everything. It was, to me, that was always, it was a taste of playoffs, but in week 3 and week 4. And so I think it's going to be one heck of a matchup. And, I'll put it this way. I'm not too happy that I'll be in a hotel in Fort Worth Friday night. I wish I could be there, but people definitely should tune in and keep track of that game. It'll be a good one.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Just hearing that talk about rivalries and animosity gets my blood pumping a little bit. I mean, those are memories you never really shake. They stay with you, kind of for the rest of your life. I mean, they were very pivotal parts in playing football in high school. But with that being said, that's actually all that we have to go over today. Palmer, is there anything else that you want to say or get off your chest before we get out of here?
No, man, I just appreciate y'all having me on, and I look forward to doing this again in the future. Maybe come around playoff time or something like that. But I really enjoyed it, man. Thank y'all for having me on.
Absolutely. I say this without any kind of BS. You were a fantastic guest. And again, you did, I think, more research going into the game than any guy we've had on so far. So thank you. Thank you for coming on and shooting the stuff with us. But this has been the Texas Private School Podcast. I have been your host, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have excellently been themselves. Palmer Nix has been a fantastic guest. We will have his socials in the show notes below. Please go follow him and keep up with his journey in football. We will see you in the next episode. See you later.
3, 2, 1.